Most people think intelligence leads to wealth. But if that were true, the smartest people would be the richest. They're not. Some of the highest IQ individuals struggle financially, while average thinkers build profitable businesses. So what's going on? In this video, I'm going to break down the psychological patterns that keep smart people stuck, and why intelligence alone can actually delay income. Stay with me, because one of these traps might be costing you money right now. Before we go deeper, let me introduce this section properly. This section is about the difference between being right and being effective. They are not the same. Now let's break it down. Smart people are trained to value correctness. In school, you are rewarded for the right answer, the best explanation, the most accurate logic. But business does not reward correctness. Business rewards effectiveness. There's a powerful idea in the book Thinking, Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. He explains how humans are wired with cognitive biases that distort rational thinking. One of them is overconfidence bias, the tendency to overestimate the accuracy of our knowledge. Highly intelligent people are especially vulnerable to this. Why? Because they trust their reasoning ability. But business is not a logic contest. It's a market test. The market does not care how correct your analysis is. It cares whether customers buy. This creates what I call the intelligence trap. Smart people optimize for being right. Entrepreneurs optimize for being profitable. Those are different goals. Perfectionism also plays a role here. In mindset, Carol Dweck explains the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. People who strongly identify as smart often develop a fixed mindset around intelligence. They don't want to look incompetent. They don't want to release something imperfect. So they delay launching. They refine endlessly. They polish. They adjust. But here's the problem. Revenue comes from exposure, not perfection. And the smarter you are, the easier it is to justify delay. You can always find one more improvement, one more optimization, one more flaw, and while you are optimizing, someone else is selling. That's the intelligence trap. Now let's move to the second psychological pattern. Section 2. Analysis paralysis. This section is about overthinking, and why it feels productive even when it's not. Smart people are good at processing information. They research deeply. They compare options. They evaluate risks. But here's something critical. Planning triggers dopamine. Learning triggers dopamine. Research triggers dopamine. In the book Atomic Habits, James Clear explains how habits are driven by reward anticipation. Your brain rewards behavior that feels like progress. Research feels like progress. Watching business videos feels like progress. Building complex spreadsheets feels like progress. But none of those guarantee income. This is what psychologists call the illusion of progress. You feel productive, but you are emotionally protecting yourself from risk. Execution is uncomfortable. Launching exposes you to rejection. Selling exposes you to judgment. So your brain chooses the safer alternative. More research. More thinking, more planning. There's also something called loss aversion, explained in Thinking, Fast and Slow. Humans fear losses more than they value gains. Starting a business risks, looking foolish, losing money, public failure. So the intelligent brain says, let's gather more information first. But information gathering can become a shield. At some point, more thinking becomes procrastination with a good reputation. And this is where many smart people stay stuck. They know more than beginners. But they execute less than builders. And in business, execution beats knowledge almost every time. Before we move into the next pattern, let me introduce what this part is really about. Up until now, we've talked about thinking patterns. Now we're going to talk about identity. Because for many intelligent people, the real obstacle isn't knowledge. It's ego. Let's break this down. Section 3. The fear of looking stupid. This section is about psychological identity, and why being the smart one can quietly sabotage your income. Here's what happens. If you've always been seen as intelligent, in school, in your family, in your social circle, that identity becomes part of your self-worth. You're the one with answers. You're the one who understands things quickly. You're the competent one. Now enter business. Suddenly, you don't know everything. Your first offer might fail. Your marketing might flop. You might get ignored. That's a threat to identity. In psycho-cybernetics, Maxwell Maltz explains that humans act in alignment with their self-image. If your self-image is, "I am smart and competent," you will unconsciously avoid situations that make you look incompetent. Starting a business makes everyone incompetent at first. You will be bad at sales, bad at positioning, bad at messaging, bad at negotiation. But intelligent people struggle with this phase more than average thinkers. Why? Because they're not used to being beginners. In Mindset, Carol Dweck explains that people who strongly identify with being smart tend to avoid challenges that threaten that label. They prefer situations where they can demonstrate competence. Business doesn't give you that luxury. You have to tolerate being misunderstood. You have to tolerate low views. You have to tolerate rejection. The smarter you think you are, the more painful that emotional friction becomes. So what happens? You delay starting. You overprepare. You redesign your logo for the 10th time. You wait until you feel ready. But readiness is emotional comfort, not strategic timing. And the market rewards courage, not comfort. Now let's move to the next pattern. Section 4. The comfort of theory. This section is about why smart people love learning, but avoid building. Intelligent individuals are often heavy consumers of information. They read business books. They watch strategy videos. They analyze case studies. They understand complex frameworks. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Understanding a strategy and executing a strategy are psychologically different behaviors. Learning is safe. Execution is exposure. In The War of Art, Stephen Pressfield describes something called resistance. Resistance is the invisible force that pushes you toward distraction instead of creation. And it often disguises itself as productive behavior. For example, watching another entrepreneurship video, instead of launching your product. Reading another marketing book, instead of testing your offer. Taking another course, instead of selling. The intelligent brain justifies this easily. It says, "I'm preparing." But preparation can become avoidance. There's also a psychological reward in being knowledgeable. It feels powerful to understand business concepts. It feels sophisticated to discuss strategy. But knowledge without exposure doesn't generate income. In fact, the more theory you accumulate without execution, the more intimidating execution becomes. Because now your expectations are higher. You know too much to produce something imperfect. And perfectionism delays shipping. Meanwhile, the market rewards speed of iteration. Launch, observe, adjust, repeat. Smart people often want clarity before action. Entrepreneurs get clarity through action. That difference changes everything. Before we move into the final section, let me introduce what this part is about. Up until now, we've identified the psychological traps. Now we're going to talk about the execution gap, and how intelligent people can actually turn this into a competitive advantage. Let's begin. Section 5. The execution gap. This section is about one brutal truth. Wealth rewards speed of iteration, not depth of thinking. Let me explain. In business, you don't get paid for understanding the market. You get paid for interacting with it. There's a concept in startup methodology popularized by the lean startup called the build, measure, learn loop. You build something small. You measure feedback. You learn from the data. Then you adjust. Notice something important. Clarity comes after action, not before. Smart people often try to think their way into certainty. But certainty is earned through testing. The market is a feedback machine. And feedback requires exposure. Here's the contrast. Smart thinker plans extensively, optimizes privately, delays publicly, waits for confidence. Builder launches early, gets feedback, adjusts quickly, builds confidence through repetition. In business psychology, this is the difference between outcome orientation and process orientation. Outcome-oriented individuals focus on getting it right. Process-oriented individuals focus on getting reps. And reps build revenue. There's also something called the action bias. In uncertain situations, people who act, even imperfectly, outperform those who freeze in analysis. Execution compounds. Overthinking stalls. Now here's the important shift. Intelligence is not the problem. Untrained intelligence is. When intelligence is paired with emotional tolerance for uncertainty, it becomes lethal. Because now you can analyze feedback quickly, adjust strategy intelligently, spot patterns others miss, improve faster than average thinkers. But that only happens after you start. Intelligence is powerful, but by itself, it's neutral. It can build wealth, or it can build elaborate excuses. The difference is emotional tolerance. Can you tolerate being bad at something new? Can you tolerate slow growth? Can you tolerate public imperfection? If you can, your intelligence becomes a multiplier. If you can't, it becomes a delay mechanism. The smartest entrepreneurs aren't the ones who think the most. They're the ones who think clearly, and then move anyway. If this video made you reflect, that's good. Awareness is the first strategic advantage. If you want more breakdowns on business psychology and strategic thinking, subscribe and watch the next video on the channel.